For center number 4, obviously you're watching the screencast already, so what you need to do is take out your Middle Ages novel, your bookmark, and a handout for this center, and you're going to be working on an I am poem regarding the protagonist in your novel. So if you take a look at my example, and let me show you first. Here's the template that you need. On this side, you'll see the requirements of what you need to include. Since we've just talked about poetry and poetic elements, you are going to need to include some of those in here. And this is where you're going to do your pre-writing. I've did this, and I'm going to say this is probably going to be a bit of a challenge activity, but I think that's a good thing. You're going to complete your first draft on this page, and I would spend maybe 15 minutes. Just jot some ideas down. Don't worry so much about the requirements yet. Just write some ideas down about things in your book. Think about what's something your character might have wondered, what's something that your character might have heard if they were in the woods or in a working in the field, what's something they would see and want, and just jot down some thoughts to begin with. Once you have your ideas sketched out on here, you'll then go into Google Classroom and type out the draft that is what you'll actually submit. So if we look at some of the requirements, it says write a poem about the protagonist in your Middle Ages novel using details from what you've read so far. Your poem will be written in first person from the character's point of view. Use the following checklist to make sure you complete everything. So do include a minimum of 6 words per line, and that is not including the stem starter. So you'll see I have here I am, I wonder, I hear. So these do not count as part of your 6 words. You need to write 6 additional words. The first and last line must be your character's name and an appositive. So here you'll say I am, and you'll fill in your character's name, and then you're going to come up with an appositive to describe your character. And you're going to do that at the beginning and the end. And obviously, it should not be the same appositive. You're going to have to come up with a different way to describe your character. And when you're done, I want you to highlight 5 prepositional phrases. As far as elements of poetry, you need to include one of these ideas. You need to either include one example of end rhyme, or an example of internal rhyme, or an example of alliteration. So let's go take a look at mine. One of the things you can see I did here is what's in black here was what I wrote originally, and what I've added here in red, I noticed that maybe I needed more description to some of these, and thought of how could I add description. So anything in red was an addition to what I had when I first drafted it. So I did my I am poem about Link from Good Mythical Morning. I am Link, a funny YouTuber who makes a living performing weird eating stunts. I wonder what it would be like to be a flaming hot Cheeto. I hear my best friend Rhett making fun of me. I see 1 million likes on our channel. I want to spend the rest of my life making people laugh. I am always making horrible puns to go along with our challenges. I pretend the crunchy 8-legged tarantula I'm devouring is sushi. I feel some of the last food challenge on its way back up. I touch the darts I have to throw on the map for the international food tests. I cry when the jalapenos are too hot to handle. I'm glad we never buried our time capsule in the old tobacco field. I say mythical beasts a lot when I refer to our viewers. I understand that I am much more like a playful puppy than an adult. I try before every show for perfectly coiffed hair. I hope I made the right choice not becoming an engineer. I am Link, the man living the dream and giving joy with my best friend. So you can see my positive at the beginning was a noun that renamed Link's here was a YouTuber, and then I added some description around him. This time, man was the word that renamed Link, and then I added some description around that. For my element of poetry, we were talking about sound. I included all 3 but you only need one, but I just wanted to show you what it might look like. So here I had some alliteration, jalapenos, hot, and handle. Here I tried for some end rhyme, hair and engineer, which wasn't quite perfect, but close enough. And then I had living and giving within the same line. So that was internal rhyme. So the way I have this labeled, I want you to try to do the same thing when you're doing your essay, your final draft, so that I can check to make sure you have these components. The next thing you need to include is an example of imagery. And imagery appeals to the 5 senses. You're going to use some strong adjectives and vivid verbs to describe something that you see, hear, taste, smell, or touch. And so in mine, here's my example of imagery. The crunchy 8-legged are adjectives to describe the tarantula, and devouring is my vivid verb. And then the last element of poetry you need to try to include is an example of figurative language. And so you can use any of these. And here was mine. I am much more like a playful puppy than an adult is a simile. Okay. Obviously, when you're thinking about your book, I don't want you repeating the same event in different lines. Okay. If you should finish this, you are going to turn in. Make sure you click turn in your Google Classroom so that I can grade it. If you don't finish this, it's homework, but it's not something I want you to spend a lot of time on at home. So I will try to check in with you before you leave class. But if you have any questions, please ask. And if you do finish early, you can work on reading your Middle Ages novel.